Welcome, everyone, to episode 7
Ooh, 7
of Up the Waterfall podcast. It is episode 7, but part 3 of our EPCOT series, which we thought would maybe be one episode. It's now turning into an entire digest.
Might be a full month's worth.
Yes, or more.
EPCOT month.
We'll see.
If anything, October is a good month for that. So.
That's true. I was just going to say, which October is the month to do that.
That's right.
Because it's the anniversary of EPCOT. As always, I am Susanna, or Zanna, of Zannaland, and I'm here with my husband, Scott Otis.
Otisney. That's me.
And I've been saying this the last, 2 episodes. If you are just listening for the first time, you should start with our part 1 EPCOT episode and then into part 2. It's not like, it's a continuing saga that you can't tell what's going on, but we do go from the main entrance through Future World, and we're wrapping up Future World today and then heading to World Showcase.
That's right.
So if you want to have a cohesive journey, I suppose, start with part 1 and part 2.
I would agree. It works either way, but it helps to remember. 1, then 2, then 3, then 4.
Yeah. So we left off last episode, if I can remember that far back.
We ended, I believe, in Wonders of Life.
Yes, that's right. We had to go back to Wonders of Life because we were going chronologically, sort of, with the exception of Journey into Imagination, because I wanted to end.
Oh, that's right. We ended with that, actually.
Well, no, because then we went back over to Wonders of Life and wrapped that up really quick. It was just a quick jaunt to Wonders of Life, which I'm fine with because, as I said then, it was never one of my, oh my God, I have to go kind of thing.
I went. I liked it.
Yeah. I mean, I always went for Cranium Command and to walk around, but it wasn't, like Horizons or Journey into Imagination, which I would go back and forth between the two.
Absolutely.
So that said, I guess we're going to jump into the Communicore, which we touched on a little bit when you were talking about the fact that some of the pavilions did not have a post-show area, but it was in Communicore, which I had never put that together in my small brain.
So
back
both Spaceship Earth and Universe of Energy, their essential post shows were in the Communicore buildings in opposite ends, but the parts that were closest to the exits of those attractions. I mean, it makes sense now that Spaceship Earth's post show was in what used to be Earth Station, but back then Earth Station was used more as kind of a guest relations. So then people would move on there. But I'd still like to touch upon that.
Yes.
And so if we were to start in the Communicore West, I know. Usually you go east first. East is, in my mind, was always considered the better of the two Communicores. But I think there's some things in Communicore West that were a lot of fun, too. But yeah, the FutureCom, which was presented by AT&T, or the Bell Systems back in the early day, that was the post show of the Spaceship Earth, and that was the thing I remember most. Of course, the fountain of information, that giant flowing fountain of just what I guess then they thought were all kinds of future technologies, like cassette tapes, or there were certainly no CDs in there, but.
Were there not? I feel like I remember there being like shiny discs in there.
I believe those were laser discs.
Oh, okay. That makes
or
sense.
not actually. There were video discs even before laser discs.
Wow.
So it was, yeah.
I never put that together either. I just, I don't know.
It was just a weird thing. I never really looked at it too closely to see, but I do remember all kinds of there were digital readouts that were kind of made it look like it was flowing, and all kinds of movement and things like that. So. It was just a lot of fun. You should definitely look at videos for those things.
Yeah, we'll link to Martin's Vids again. We've been doing that because it really is, if you weren't there or if you were there and want to remember because you were young.
It's very difficult to describe these things with words.
But he really does a great job of covering not just old home movies, which he has some great quality of those in there, but also like blueprints and plans and concept art and how it actually ended up looking and things like that. So.
Right, but the things that I remember were back in our day, if you forgive me for saying that, that was kind of the introduction of touchscreen technology with computers, and so they had a lot of games, and they had a lot also in Communicore East, but where you actually touched the monitor or the screen
to give your answer to things.
To either give answers or to kind of move, drag and drop things. It was, and so all of that was just so fascinating and just new to us that it just became so compelling, and just that's really kind of what drew me in.
Yeah, because at the time, I mean, there were some computer games, but they were not graphic, I don't believe yet. It was all just like writing. I don't know if you ever did that growing up.
I did the writing ones like Zork.
Yeah,
and things
where
like
you had to know DOS. And I remember when we moved to Ocala and I went to a school there, that was what I did in our like free time. We had a gigantic, I mean, it wasn't that big, but it was a computer, with a huge monitor, and I would type in things and learn DOS commands and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's how I got into it too. But
so to see it on the screen is what I'm saying. It was like really.
Yes, actual visual representations of things. I did have an Atari growing up.
That's true. Yes, but I mean, computer stuff was different, or like just a monitor that you could touch was.
So it was just new, something. And I guess that's kind of why these things probably are not around as much longer, is because technology has certainly advanced exponentially to the point where all of that seems very old school right now, but it's still fond memories.
I mean, touch screens still exist. They're just much smaller now.
But they also had there what later became a very big part of my life, the EPCOT Outreach.
Ah, yes.
Which was a favorite place of mine, because it was back when EPCOT was introduced, all of these concepts in all of these pavilions and attractions and even World Showcase were all completely new to everyone, and so they started getting all of these guest questions about, like, how does agriculture work, or can you tell me more about this universe of energy thing? And so they essentially created a place. It was actually in the first year, 1983, the year after EPCOT opened, where they created this EPCOT Outreach, and they stuck it there in Communicore West, and it was just a place for essentially a kind of a desk monitor, or staffed by folks there that were just there to answer guest questions. They had a bunch of printouts that they would give away and those were based on what questions were the most asked, and so in order to kind of avoid continuously getting asked these questions, they put together lists of things that people could take away. And I absolutely remember going in there all the time and taking those away, just kind of like a one sheet about, for each of the pavilions.
Yeah.
I know they did one on Hidden Mickeys.
Yeah,
of course.
I have that in this book, I think, actually. But I got this when it moved to where upstairs from the Art of Disney is.
Yes, but it initially started in Communicore West, kind of right adjacent to the breezeway, across from where the restaurant is. Oh yes, I remember this well. So this is the.
It's like in press release form, so it's pretty funny because it's like Mickey Mouse design hidden at Walt Disney World Resort, and that talks about where you can find the hidden Mickeys,
and that was the early days of all of that. So there certainly aren't as many.
I guess I got this in '95, so because it says EPCOT '95 right there, where the.
I'm not sure when they started doing the Hidden Mickeys in particular, but I know that they started doing this desk in 1983, and they also had a separate a teachers forum, a place where teachers could go to gather materials if they wanted to bring this back to their classrooms and kind of teach some concepts of Epcot Center in their classroom. So they had the teachers lounge as well as the manned desk, and then the computer printouts. And they also had computer printouts on the other side where the electronic forum is, but we'll get to that later. But anyway,
that pretty much wraps up West, right?
Well, there was the one section that was kind of where it later became Expo Robotics. That one was kind of like they never could find anything that would last there too long, but the Expo Robotics was the one that lasted the longest.
I did watch videos on that. I don't really remember seeing that.
It just essentially had arms, kind of like computer arms, where they would showcase that you could program these things to do amazing things, and with the spinning tops.
That technology has improved, of course, but
yeah.
the design is very similar, because now on Royal Caribbean cruises they have the bionic bar where you can select what drink you want them to make, and then those same style of robot arms will reach in and get all the ingredients and shake it together and give you a drink at the end. So
That's right.
technology used for
Right. But then that space was later used for when they introduced the VR, the virtual reality. They had the Aladdin attraction.
Yes, I do remember
that. Kind of, it then went to Disney Quest, but that was their kind of Disney Imagineering's introduction into virtual reality. And I did that a couple of times, but it did make me nauseous, actually, a couple of times. So still had some kinks to work out. But yeah, if we were to head over to the other side, that is where they had, what was it, FutureCom, I believe. Or actually, FutureCom was the one in West that we were talking about earlier. Backstage Magic was probably my favorite, because that's the one that actually had the show. That was initially the Astuter Computer Review.
Which I did see at least once.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Because that was a very short living show. And I actually, my first visit in, I believe, 83 or 84. Because my first visit was in 84, in May. And it had already been...
it was gone by then.
It was gone by then. It was Backstage Magic with Julie, which was very nice. Anyway, but it was kind of an introduction to kind of the computers that run not only everything at Epcot Center, but pretty much everything at all of Disney World. Kind of partnered with DAX, that system, and they kind of showed how all of the audio animatronics were monitored there, and the lights, and pretty much all of the movements of things, American Adventure, everything. And that was a fun exhibit there, because eventually they opened up, I guess they showed you behind the scenes where the actual computers, and
they're still there.
And they are literally still there. That's where they run it from. And I think that is actually one of the reasons why that building is not being leveled in the new Epcot, is because there's so much infrastructure there that...
it wasn't built to be destroyed.
That's right.
Did you find out how long that ran? Astuter Computer.
Any guesses?
Well, he said
from park opening to, I'm guessing, 83.
83.
But do you have the month?
January 2nd, 1984.
Okay, so then I did see it on my first visit. That's why I don't have too many memories of it, because it was probably only once.
So it lasted between 1 and 2 years. And they had that dancing man.
Yes.
Who's actually
Pearly.
Ken Jennings. Ken Jennings, yes. Not of Jeopardy fame.
Pearly the Pearly, is that his name?
He was a Pearly.
Such a random choice but it worked.
And that was a Sherman Brothers song. Anyway. But I prefer Julie, because she was cute. And she worked with Io to show all of that.
Io. It was such a weird time. This is off topic, I guess, but it was such a weird time for computer knowledge back then, because it was really a whole new language, and IO being an actual computer term or whatever,
input,
output. Yeah. I remember in that same school I was talking about, we did a play that was all about computer stuff, and there was we were acting out they were doing garbage in and garbage out, and these weird glitch things, and it was so ridiculous. I wish I had
that
a
is
video
weird.
of that. Yeah, but that was a big thing back then, was the fact that computers were now accessible to everyone, and you needed to learn new terms, because otherwise you wouldn't know what was going on, and it would just be what's happening? So yeah.
But they also had in that same area a lot more of those computer games. Essentially, they had the population clock, that thing with the little characters going around, and showed the ever-growing United States population back then with 250 million, I remember. But then they also had where you drag and drive, and you created the stars and stripes of the American flag.
Yes.
Or the jet set game, where you kind of had to put people and their luggage onto an airplane to be able to go. And of course, our favorite robot Do you remember his name?
Smart One.
That's right.
Which I always said in my head is Smirt One.
That's because the A wasn't there.
I know, but like they even say it when,
Yeah.
you know, when you go to his little area, they would say, this is Smart One. He's the smartest
He's
person.
so smart that he can read his name without the A.
I guess. I was just dumb.
But that was, I guess you picked up a phone and he
It's a
asked you
family
questions. He asked you a bunch of questions and then he would be able to guess certain things based on
Yeah.
your answers.
And he was just a cute little guy. Like
Yeah,
he was
a cute little
built
purple
in a
robot.
way that it was very welcoming and friendly.
That's
not
right.
just a robot arm. He was like a whole.
He had a personality
Yeah.
and a character. It was great.
And if nothing else, you could just, as a kid, run over there and, you know, listen in on the phone and try to stump him.
Yeah.
But it never
You
worked.
you can never stump him.
And I do remember the American Express travel area that was in it, like you went up
Yeah,
the
that was
ramp
across the way, on the other side of the pathway. Essentially, you're kind of next to, I guess, the restaurant. But they had a giant weird ball. I actually never really went there because I never went to an American Express travel agent.
Well, I didn't like book anything, but you could just like walk through and
Yeah, I
look at
know.
stuff, you know.
I went to the American Express travel desk in the mall to get all of the Disney World stuff that they had available. But
we would go to AAA,
oh, interesting.
get triptychs because we drove down.
Oh, I did
you know.
triptychs, of course, but we're getting way off topic.
Sorry.
I want to mention one other thing was, of course, you could build a roller coaster, which they later, of course, perfected in
Some of
Disney.
all
Disney
thrills.
Quest?
Well, I was going to say
Oh,
Disney Quest and
yeah.
then Some of All Thrills.
Did you
which
ever ride Some of All Thrills?
I did.
You did? You did?
Absolutely.
I never did. I got a pin I was there on its last day and got a pin, but I still never, I mean, I was with Gio, so I couldn't have anyway.
It was
But
great.
I'm not
when it
a-
finally ended, I liked it.
yeah.
I liked it more than the Disney Quest one.
I never did that either. See, I'm not a huge coaster person. I'm always afraid of
But
getting
these
sick,
are all
so.
future
Yeah,
things.
exactly.
I was
Oh, yeah,
talking about
sorry.
the original
Well, you know.
build a coaster where
this
you
is what
could
makes us
essentially use a
fun.
touch
Get
screen
off
and
topic.
kind of
Yes, yeah.
and
So
it
you
had
just
the
watched
little-
it. You didn't like.
yeah, you just watched it. But it had the beaver guy
Yeah.
who was very reminiscent of the beaver in the Lady and the Tramp with the
66%.
lisp or the say.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, from Lady and the Tramp, but I was kind of associated. Like, I guess I always thought they were the same character.
That guy, yeah, I think they were. And
I don't know.
there's also, isn't there like Gopher in Winnie the Pooh?
Yes.
But I don't know if he has that same voice. It's been too long since I've
They're-
seen
Lighting.
These are all ground rodents, so that's fun.
as opposed to air rodents.
Water road.
I just meant they all kind of
Yeah,
are
yeah.
lumped together as being similar. Getting way off topic here.
No.
And then I was going to
Ground
head
rodents
over.
are always on top.
I was going to head on over to the next thing, which was energy exchange, which we did mention when we talked about the universe of energy a bit. And that was just kind of a thing where you could. I remember they had a giant oil rig.
Yes, I do remember
And they
that.
kind of showed you how far under the ocean it went. And I know they had a hand crank where you could essentially.
Yeah, that was always really hard to do. for
Yeah,
me.
it always made you very tired. Where you could power a light bulb if you could turn a crank pretty quick, and showing you how much power it took
Yeah.
to
And
actually light
I
a
think
light bulb.
I said this on one of the last episodes that all of these things, and I guess it was talking about Wonders of Life, all of those kind of like post-show or whatever activities are very like science museum-y.
Yes.
Which, you know, everyone loves a science museum.
Yeah, in my mind,
And back then it was,
Communicore was essentially kind of like that.
yeah. So it was,
So,
as we've been saying, edutainment,
yes.
because you were learning things as well as having fun. They
well,
also had the census over there.
yes, they had the United States Census, the population clock.
Oh, that's what that was?
yeah.
No, I'm just reading this.
And there was a
highlight.
game down there as part of that.
And the
too.
Epcot poll was in.
Well, that was in the northern end.
Oh,
Well, I'm
okay.
sorry,
This
the
is why
southern end.
I've been trying to picture this in my head, and I knew that the Epcot poll
Across
was
the
next
bridge.
to
It
the
was
Centaurium.
next to the Centaurium, yes. So the
Okay.
Centaurium and the electronic forum, or Epcot pole, were on the south side of Communicore East.
I'm
And
gonna
all
have
of
to
the things that we're
rewatch
talking about
videos.
now, including Energy Exchange and Backstage Magic, were on the north
Yeah.
side.
I just got so used to interventions, it's hard for me. I remember doing the individual things, but like the layout is lost in my mind.
Yes. So now I'm going to that last quadrant where we were talking about, where they had the electronic forum. and the EPCOT poll, and then they also had this Man of the Century.
Yes.
And this was actually run by the folks over at EPCOT Outreach on the other side, staffed by the same folks who did that, I later learned. And they also had printouts at the post-show of that. I guess it was both pre-show and post-show. But anyway, in this place, they had things, additional things that you could hold up to your, or I guess phones, and they had... But they had different news things. I'm not talking about where you went into the theater
No,
first.
I do remember that, yeah.
But they had different topics, different present-day news items
Yes.
that you could learn about there. And it was very strange because that's kind of the only place in all of Disney World where you could kind of get back into
in touch
whatever
with
was
reality,
going on
yeah.
in the world.
And if you think about it, it was foreshadowing to the future of personal phones,
Oh,
where
yeah.
now you get all of the news delivered to your fingertips.
That's right. And
But
even
we probably didn't think about it being that way.
Not at
back
all.
then. It was just like, whoa.
So, but they did have the bank of computers where they essentially had the Man of the Century, where you could talk about who's the most influential person.
Walt Disney.
And honestly, I always thought, how could it not be Walt Disney?
Yeah.
Because he was born in 1901, and he had such an everlasting impact on everybody's life for an entire century.
But we did recently watch the Communicore Martin's Vids, and they said in there that they never really announced who.
No, because I guess
won.
there were some shenanigans going on there where people were trying to do a write-in vote for a particular cast member, I guess.
Oh, really?
It was a
I
very
missed that whole
strange
thing.
thing.
That's funny.
So, yeah. They did, I think that eventually they had a top 10, but... yeah, they never really came out with a final answer for that. But anyway, the main thing there was that they had a show and a theater that you would walk into and have very comfortable seats. It wasn't a huge theater, but it had on your armrest, I believe, A through E, kind of like they had at American Idol Experience.
Yeah.
But this was the precursor to that, and they would talk about actual kind of current events, hot topics.
Lots of nuclear power topics,
Yeah.
and I think there was like immigration things.
Oh, sure.
Maybe.
Anything that was like that. Yeah. They talked
You could
about
see what the rest of the audience
very
thought.
controversial. Yeah. And so they would basically poll the audience to see what their thoughts were. And there were some introductory questions on whether you're male or female, where you lived, if you were an American citizen or if you lived outside the country. And so they were able to kind of break down the answers based on that at the end. But it was
Technology.
I always enjoyed that, and they would show video clips of certain things to to kind of give you an idea of what was going on, and then they would ask questions. And that was, of course, run by a person there who, as I mentioned, worked at EPCOT Outreach. So that was always a fun show. Probably a lot of people thought it was maybe drier, a little.
I mean, it was air conditioned and you got to sit down, so I didn't mind it at all.
But I always found
and
it
I
very
liked
unique.
that you got to
yeah.
vote, and it was fun and cool.
That's right, because everyone, including small children, could vote.
Yes,
And
and it would.
You beat up everyone that doesn't agree with you.
I was just gonna say that concept I don't think would ever happen today, because Disney has certainly changed their focus and brand.
Oh, very much so.
So that they would not want to engage in such controversial
Yes.
topics
Well,
and
back then they
rile
did.
people up.
But this was, of course, right. They had those two giant satellite dishes just
Yes.
outside of this, and that's kind of where they were able to essentially get all the information from, have it beamed there.
That's so
Well,
weird
back
to
in the
think
early
about.
days, if you read what was it? I'm trying to remember his name. The press release guy, Charlie Ridgway.
Oh.
He was talking about how they used that and how they were able to do live interviews back at the opening of EPCOT using those
Wow.
satellites.
It's very weird to think about.
Yeah, it was kind of doing live feeds back. So this is the early '80s
Yeah.
we're talking about. So those actually had a huge impact, and that's kind of why they were there, and that's why they were particularly there because that was right next to the place where you could get the news, essentially. So, but then, of course, right next to that.
Yeah, enough of this education.
Yeah.
We need to focus
Let's go
on
shopping.
Fun.
This is where they had the Centaurium. You ever been to the Centaurium?
Oh, have I? Every night in my mind, I still go.
This is a fantastic shop. This was essentially the largest shop in Epcot Center.
It's really weird to me that a store, a Disney store, can have such a place in my heart and mind.
Seriously.
But it really, I don't know what, I guess it's the combination of all of the original Epcot Center, all of the 80s, and the fact that I was the perfect age to experience
all
it.
All of it was perfection. I mean, even just the signage.
Yeah.
They had all of the little hexagons with all of the logos of all of the different pavilions in I guess silver, right?
Yeah.
They were kind
and then
of
the logos were the color of whatever.
Yeah. To me, that was just great. I mean, so they had a walkway on the outside with
huge
giant
hallway, which
with giant windows. You can kind of get a sense of how that is over now in what is Innovations West. And no,
because now it's closed.
Oh, hello, that's gone now. So, if you remember where that was, so they had a giant hallway with floor to ceiling windows that were 2 stories high, which we'll talk about at the end of the Centaurium about why they were that high, or another reason why they were that high. But anyways, and then I remember the carpet was kind of a reddish purplish. But anyway, and then the Centaurium was right there, and you took a stairwell down into it.
Yeah,
which it was multi-leveled.
Late 70s, early 80s architecture of sunken living rooms and stuff like that. Like that. Always I had a few friends that had
5 steps down
sunken living rooms, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever.
And I think all of the rooms there were kind of hexagon shaped as well. I'm sure that was a theme.
And it wasn't overly crowded. It wasn't even a huge space, but there were different areas, the stairs up to that other little nook.
Well, there were definitely multi-levels. I always enjoy the upper levels because they had kind of like some fancier things.
Well, yes.
Art.
Then you could either take an elevator or the actual stairs.
Oh, okay. You're talking about even just the downstairs portion.
Yeah, because if you came in from the breezeway between Stargate and here, you walked down a few steps into the store as you did on the other side, and then there was a separate jewelry area which I hung out in. That's where I got
I probably didn't hang out there as much.
Charm bracelet with my Figment, which I still have. He's very tarnished because one time I thought to clean him I would put him in the dishwasher.
No.
I did a lot of dumb things like that growing up. My logic was not best. Right. But I got, and I'm wearing these in the late years of the Centaurium. These are titanium, which was the newest
fancy
fad of
the fancy metals.
Yeah. And it was they're rainbowy green and purpley.
They're Mickey-shaped Epcot balls.
And they're laser-cut Mickey heads.
Oh, my.
And then a little hoop. And I distinctly, this is ingrained in my memory for some reason. I can't remember something that happened yesterday, but I remember walking in and getting those off of the little jewelry display and buying them. So, what a weird, dumb memory to keep in my head.
I don't think that's weird or dumb at all.
But yeah, I still have them. And I don't have anymore my Epcot logo, the little Epcot Center logo, not Spaceship Earth or anything, earrings, which I did have at the time too. My friend Katie and I both have an eBay alert, for any Epcot Center earrings that come up.
Unbeknownst to you, I've been looking for these too.
Well, there's going to be a lot of us trying to bid if they ever come. If you have Epcot Center logo earrings from the 80s that you'd like to sell, please drop me an email, Zanna@zannaland.com. I'll be happy to pay a handsome sum.
That's right.
But getting back to, there was the upstairs area that you could take the elevator or walk up an actual flight of stairs.
Yeah.
Which were the wooden slat stairs with you could see through them.
Love it.
And glass.
But yeah, that's what up there they had more of the higher end things. I remember they had art, kind of some of the more fancier, I think, clocks and things like that, watches.
And wasn't the golf stuff up there, or was that down?
Yeah, the golf stuff was it. And there was even multi-levels, even just on the upstairs parts. It was a very interesting area. And now it is that shop. Mouse Gear. So
Mouse
it's in the
Gear.
same place as that. But this was, I don't know, bigger. It wasn't bigger. But it just seemed.
It wasn't bigger, but it was more open feeling.
Oh, very
it
much so.
wasn't like when you walk into Mouse Gear, or Mouse Gears as most people call it, which is annoying in and of itself because no one knows the name. We'll do a show on nomenclature at some point.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it was just
It's
more.
very crowded.
Yeah, it's so crowded. Like whenever they've renovated it over the years, it's just to add more stuff. And of course,
Yeah.
the Disney merchandise machine is a runaway train at
It
this
really
point.
is. And so it's almost to the point where you just couldn't have
Yeah.
a Centaur.
And this
now.
was back in the time when you couldn't get everything everywhere. It was if
Yeah.
you wanted a Figment shirt, you had to get it in Epcot, nowhere else. I
That's
don't know
right.
if they sell Figment shirts in the rest of like Magic Kingdom, but you can get
Certainly
generic Walt Disney World merchandise anywhere. So it was a combination, I think, of those things, that it was unique in design and just there was little figments around, like the figurines, the large figures
that's
of
right.
Figment that were decorated, and there was a Figment section with all the different size stuffed Figments, which I don't have my large one out here or my original one, but
There
that's
are
where
more
I
Figments than
yeah,
this.
Yeah.
they exist. They're all around the house.
good times. And it was air conditioned, and walking through that hallway was
Yeah, I just remember it was always just a good time going there. I don't have necessarily any specific memories about much there, but I just remember always going there and just always being happy.
And you got a cool Epcot Center bag if you bought anything.
Oh, that's right. I do
still
remember.
have a box, an
Go
Epcot
ahead.
Center
Oh yeah,
like gift box.
Yeah.
somewhere.
I've got.
You
I've
have
got
a bunch
those
of
in the
those, I'm
place.
sure.
But I also remember I did get the giant Epcot Center map there. So
Oh,
got that.
where's that?
It's in the place.
Okay. That makes it sound
Anyway.
terrible.
Yeah.
No, it's a good place.
Big good place.
I've got a place with a lot of stuff.
It's called a storage unit, folks. You may have heard of it. It's
Well, I do have other things there too.
okay. Well, anyway.
Even you don't know the place.
Is this in the prenup that I didn't sign?
Wait, what?
All right. I mean, are we
What
done
is
with?
this episode?
Yes, I think that is it.
Okay, we're done with Future World. We'll bid it a
It's
fond
hard.
adieu.
Yeah.
We will, in future episodes, I think, go do a deep dive
Oh, yeah.
on different pavilions.
We're just trying to
I'm
touch
sure.
on these.
But
and
this
the-
is just the overview of Epcot memories. As I said, this is why we keep talking about Martin's Vids and stuff. This is not the facts and figures
certainly not.
podcast. It is our personal memories. And Scott, of course, is more, facts and figures than I am.
I try to be. I don't try to be more than you are. I try to get my facts and figures.
So with that said, we're going to head to World Showcase.
Which way will we go?
Before we jump in, Odyssey Restaurant
Oh yeah.
was kind of the gateway to World Showcase if you wanted to go that way. It was a fun little, and
More hexagons.
I loved going there. For some reason, to me, if I got a cheeseburger back in the day, it was better at the Odyssey than at Stargate.
Absolutely.
I have no idea why. I just really enjoyed the shape of that building. It was very
Hexagons.
brown and neutral to me.
And those bathrooms.
The bathrooms were fun and cool. And I really
Old
liked,
Epcot Center,
which
yeah.
are still there. The walkways have those huge steel rails on the
Yes.
top of them. That was very appealing to me as a child.
What's interesting is that
I don't know
the
why.
the bridge the bridge that goes from the Odyssey to the World of Motion, or what is now Test Track, that wasn't there when the park opened.
Yeah.
They actually had to add that later because I guess they realized, oh wait, traffic. They kind of want to go from here to there, and so
yeah, it was. You had to go all the way around.
so
and
yeah, Odyssey was definitely kind of more World Showcase centric.
then- yeah.
Because you had to be on either the walkway that goes to World Showcase or on the World Showcase itself to get there.
And before we jump into World Showcase, in that little lagoon area between the Odyssey walkway and Mexico, there were flamingos.
That's right.
And I
The
loved
original
seeing the flamingos.
flamingos,
They were
yes.
smelly. But I loved looking at them, and it was super cool. And I
Yeah.
was very sad when they got rid of the flamingos. I get
It's
it. I
always
understand,
fun.
but
It's always fun to have live critters.
Yeah,
and
for
that was
sure.
one of the few places. They did have the birds also in Mexico. I guess since
Oh,
I
yeah,
just did that, we're
that's
now
right.
I'm probably going Mexico first, right?
we are going to Mexico first. But before, I know this is not chronologically correct, but I just wanted to point out, because I looked this up this morning, that the port of entry and Disney traders, when do you think those were added?
Oh boy, you're gonna really quiz me here, huh? I'm gonna guess 94.
That's what I would have thought. I thought it was much closer. I mean, I don't know if this is accurate
Uh-oh.
or not, but I looked up and saw that it was 88 that those were added. I mean, I always look at those and I'm like, oh, those are the new shops, which again proves how old I am. But
Here's a fun fact. I actually started working at EPCOT Center selling ice cream bars.
in 90,
And that was in 1990.
they weren't there then?
Well, no, I can't remember. They must have been.
I mean, it's very hard to find specifics on
I guess that
those
makes
two
sense.
shops. But yeah, I remember when they were added, and for some reason I thought it was much more recent than it was. But anyway, that's not original that we're talking about. I just wanted to throw that in there, that it was
Interesting. But
a
that means
lot.
that they were definitely there
Yeah.
while I worked there, selling ice cream bars, both in World Showcase and Future World,
Yeah.
for $1.50 or $1.35 for the fruit bars,
Mm.
or $1.60 for the premium Musketeer bar.
Did you eat a bunch of those back then? Like, do you have memories of eating the...
Oh, yeah.
Because the fruit bars used to have like a weird coating on them. Do you remember that?
Yes, that was it was
was a
a lot of
different
it was
brand.
kind of wax.
Yeah.
It was it was a way to
Prevent
keep
it
it.
from melting.
Yes.
I really like those. We used to always get those. And when we opened our ice cream shop, my dad wanted to find that company and sell those there. And I think for a while it was called Froze Fruit. That was the brand. And we sold those coconut ones and strawberry ones at our shop.
Well, we had lemon and strawberry for
At
$1.35.
some point
and
you could get
they
coconut,
both had
I
the kind of the wax exterior. And yeah, we did get a lot of people that were kind of weirded out by them and wanted a refund.
I would.
There's really not much you could do
'Cause
about that.
the coconut ones had real coconut flakes in them. Do
fun.
you remember selling? Did they not have
No,
coconut ones?
we had five. We had the lemonade bar and the strawberry bar for $1.35. We had the Mickey Mouse face bar and the cookie sandwich for $1.50, and then the premium Musketeer bar for $1.60.
Maybe I'm just remembering having them at the ice cream store.
Prices.
Yeah. But the coconut flakes would like cut my tongue, and then you'd have like a bloody white coconut
We always
bar.
had to warn people that they were hard frozen because
Yeah.
we used dry ice to keep them cool, and they could, so you could do that thing where you could stick your tongue on there and it'd get stuck.
Oh, yeah.
And so we had to warn every single guest that bought them
Fun
about that
times.
danger.
So anyway, going officially into World Showcase, we always as a family went to the left and went to Mexico first.
We went all different ways.
I think because the majority of people went to the right at that time.
I
Now it
guess.
doesn't make any difference because there's a million people there all the time forever. But back then, most people would go to Canada because it was like a familiar,
and that was kind of the
closest
thing.
place.
If you wanted to go somewhere that was less crowded, always go left.
Yeah.
I
That
like
was
to-
in the
like if
burn
you were
bomb.
to
That
go-
was the
yeah.
guide. If
you
there
were
was
to-
2 lines, you go to the
Yeah.
left one.
I feel like if anything, it's maybe opposite now.
I think you're right because, alcohol plays a big part in that. I think people are like,
Unfortunately.
margaritas, let's go this way. But there isn't too far. You have to go in any direction to
There's
get a drink
alcohol
now.
all over World Showcase. But yeah, the margaritas. I've
Yeah.
never had one, but
So we always went to the left to Mexico, went in the Mexico Pavilion, and of course experienced,
El Rio del Tiempo.
yes.
Is that what you were going
Yeah,
to say?
no, that's what I was going to say. I mean, I still love the Mexico Pavilion. It was such an amazing feat.
Yeah, it's the most unique one in that it's essentially nighttime all time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would go inside and be in a plaza in nighttime.
That is
And-
one of my favorite theme park design.
Oh yeah, because you're essentially, even
whatever
though you're
that's
inside a
called,
building,
items,
you're
tropes, sure.
outside.
Yes.
You're in a plaza and
At
you can,
night,
At
too,
night, yeah,
so-
that's the thing. And so there's a beautiful fountain there, lots of fun Mexican wares that they were showing, selling. And then, of course, the restaurant, which I never got to eat at. Sorry. I always wanted to.
ate there a lot, and that's where I had cactus for the first time, because back
Cactus,
then
interesting.
they had a salad that had little bits of cactus in it, and I was super freaked out, but I tried it anyway.
I'm sure you were probably scared you were going to get
Yeah,
poked.
exactly, but that was not. It was
I'm sure they
more
removed
like
those.
a zucchini more than anything else.
Right.
But anyway, I remember thinking, I don't know if it was from reading in the Birnbaum book or what, but it might have just been my parents told me that the volcano in the background of the whole scene as you walk in, there was the
erupting
temple,
volcano.
and next to that there's a volcano in the distance, and they told me that it was going to erupt.
Oh, yeah. And
So
it was just moments away, I'm sure.
yeah, and we got, I mean, I'm sure it doesn't say it in, why would it say it in?
I'm sure it does not.
But we had reservations, to dine there. And we sat right by the water, and I just stared at that volcano nonstop the entire time. When is it going to erupt?
Planning your exit route in case you had
No,
to
I
get
mean,
out
I
of
didn't
there.
think, I just thought it would be a fun, cool effect, and it never erupted. And I was very disappointed. And then we went on the boat ride, probably before and after, because it was just such a fun,
so peaceful.
relaxing,
It still
interesting. Of course, as I said before, my mom was a former professional ballerina, so seeing I think it was ballet folklorico.
I'll have to take your word on
Were
that.
the dancers?
Yeah, they definitely. I remember
So she
in
always
the
liked
book here they talked about in the Beard book they talked about the filming of those sequences and using authentic Mexican dancers for all the different styles. I didn't really understand all of those styles, but I did think that was a very beautiful section, and I very much enjoyed it. And I certainly enjoyed. Then I went to the small children festival that they still kind of have now. But then after that was kind of had things that were very reminiscent of If You Had Wings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those little
That kind of-
scenes
little vignettes
that
of
were built into the set design.
That's
So
right.
if, there was a rocky outcropping, and then in there you would see the cliff divers.
Yes, the cliff divers of Acapulco, and there was a little swimming pool on the bottom where you could see the ocean underneath, or fish swimming.
Which is now still there. It's just
it's just
Donald with a
El
diving mask.
Donald. One of the
Donde está Donald?
part of the Three Caballeros.
Which is a fun change, I guess.
Yeah,
If they
I
had
actually
to change
enjoy that
it,
change. Yes.
and when they added back the original Mickey's Review figures to the Three Caballeros
Yes.
stage at the end, which happened on our wedding day.
That's right. They opened
in
it on our wedding
2015.
day. Yeah, because they started with them animated on the screen there, and then they took the original characters from the Mickey Mouse Review and put them in there
And
on our
then
wedding day.
Combining the Small World-esque characters in that first
one
part,
section.
and then just the Mercado scenes where they were bargaining with you, which is kind of racist now, but
And the Mexico City scene at the end with the fireworks.
Yeah.
And all of those, you could see the little fiber optics
things,
that were used.
but it was still super fun back
I
then.
like
Oh,
the
yeah.
cave part.
Yeah, basically all of it. It was just very...
Okay, oh, with the cliff divers?
Yeah, and like the cave.
Yeah, we were talking about that before. You were getting up and leaving, so you can never miss a moment of our content.
Yes. I mean, so each and every part was different, but I very much enjoyed each segment.
I also really liked, which is still there, the scenery. I guess it's just like, a wallpaper more than anything of the city of, I guess,
yes.
Mexico City
that was
is what
Mexico
that's
City.
supposed to be. And all of the little tall buildings and like hotels or whatever, and the little windows, and it was like blacklit. So it was kind of like the purpley color, which was a big Epcot theme.
That's right. Just loved it.
So yeah, it was a good time.
Just a good classic boat ride.
And back then it was very rare to have a line for that ride.
That's right.
Which I guess is maybe why they
I
changed
think I think it wasn't due to just not a lack of interest. It was just because the park wasn't as crowded as it is now.
I forgot to say in our Centurium part, if you're
Ooh,
watching
going back to
this
Centurium.
on video and not listening, I'm holding a cup from
That's
the
right.
Centurium.
We have a set of 4
which
of these guys.
They sold these in this size, and I think they had like little juice glasses, and then there was a shorter, fatter cup, which is what we had. I bought these on eBay for your birthday one year, I think.
Thank you.
But sorry, my lipstick is on the straw. But we had these growing up, and my parents would always use them. My dad would drink Diet Pepsi with a twist of lime, and then when that was done, it would become vodka with a twist of lime.
Whoops.
And welcome to my childhood. And but what I enjoyed, this is what reminded me of it. Sorry about my lipstick on this. But
Don't worry
back
about that.
then in the Mexico restaurant, I think it was only there, you had paper straws back then.
I do not recall because I never done
Because
there.
I used to get Mr. Pibb back then was my drink of choice, apparently. And and we used to, the waiter in Mexico would joke that it was Senor Pibb. And it was like a whole cute thing. And I remember the paper straws with the Mr. Pibb back
Very
then.
cool.
So just throwing that in there.
That was fun.
That was kind of before its time to have paper straws back then, which now are back again.
That's right. They're hip.
If you request a straw, that is.
That's right.
Anyway, I definitely got a piñata there at least once in my life in the little marketplace section.
Interesting.
And
I never did.
I thought that it would come with candy inside.
It didn't?
It did not come with
Oh,
candy
no.
inside. You have to fill up a piñata because why would they add candy?
Yeah, I
in
guess
this?
that
And
makes sense.
anything could happen. It could be full of bugs when you bring it home.
Yikes.
And no one would know. So I was very disappointed by that. But it all worked out in the end. At some point, I had a piñata party. I don't remember
You
exactly.
smacked it,
Yes.
cracked it, and opened it. Fun.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, there was all sorts of fun things. It was a place that I think still today people put on the most gigantic sombrero and take a photo.
Yes.
I have a picture of my brother and sister and I doing that.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I do not. But
And
that's
then
okay.
they had silver in the jewelry stores, and that was my big
Ooh.
thing, was silver jewelry back then.
Very cool.
La-ti-da.
Hey, it was cheap, and I used to, get it in Mexico and Morocco and up in Maine when I would go on vacation there.
Very cool.
Anyway, do you want to add anything else about Mexico, or?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay.
love it.
We'll cover changes in a future episode, but
Yes.
for now, that was the original EPCOT Mexico Pavilion, which was much beloved and still is. And it smells like, because of the boat ride, sorry. Because of the boat ride, when you walk in, it's a very distinct smell,
Oh,
like when
yes.
you walk into Pirates or something like
They
that.
call it the musty water smell.
Yeah,
but
and
I
that's
do
what
like it.
that hallway in Centurium smelled like to me too, because of like the musty air conditioning, mildew, probably
Worse now.
terrible.
mildew,
Yeah, but anyway,
But it's got a very, it evokes a lot of
yeah.
memories.
So that's I think why I still hold out such love and hope for EPCOT despite all the changes, is
Yeah.
because it's very transportative. What's that
transported.
word? That's not a word.
Sure.
No.
Absolutely it is.
Christian, look that up. What am I trying to say?
I
What are
think
you-
that
what
word
are you
works.
trying to
Like,
figure
it
out?
transports you.
That would be transportative.
I don't think that's a word.
I will look that up.
Let's move along.
Anyway, I'm instantly transported when I walk through the doors of the Mexico Pavilion
That's
today to the
I
80s
like that-
Mexico
That
Pavilion.
there are still things there that can do that.
Transportive.
Transportive. I was
Yeah.
adding an extra "ta." Transportive. Anyway,
Works for me.
on to the next.
Well, the next one is actually their second expansion, Norway.
Oh, right. So that wasn't there until, what, 88?
88. And actually,
I should have worn my Norway shirt.
I actually went there in May of 88. Actually, it was June of 88. It was kind of a high school graduation trip for a gift for myself. I just went by myself literally the day after I graduated high school. And one of the things I remember is going to this Norway pavilion, and it was not quite open. But everything was made, and so the walls were down, and you could walk in the area. And I did that, and since I absolutely love rock work, they had that absolutely amazing rock work at the end with the waterfall, and they were they were testing the boats.
Oh, wow.
And so I would just stand there for literally over an hour, just watching the boats and listening to the sounds that were coming from that hole that they had up there,
Yes.
where you could see the boats kind of up, probably about 30 or 40 feet up, where the boats would kind of almost come out of that hole.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see them. And it's like, what's going on? Why would they do that? Why would they come to that point, turn a little bit, and then go away? It just seemed very unique. Like back then, I didn't realize that there was a backwards section. It was just very unique.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just, that's one of the memories that I have, is just watching that for, it was also because it was something brand new.
Mm-hmm.
And I always loved brand new things. And Norway is such an interesting choice, because all of the other countries that they either had a lot of European countries. They had the 3 North American countries of Mexico, United States, and Canada, and then of course China and Japan, and then the 2 new ones were Morocco, an interesting one from Northern Africa, and then this one in Scandinavia, which I always found very fascinating. I am Swedish by origins, so I'm in, my grandparents are from Scandinavia, so.
Did you ever experience the Danish bathrooms that existed
that's right.
before?
They did have the bathrooms there that are still there, were there all by themselves, and they were, I guess, were they called Danish bathrooms? Or?
Well, that's
I guess they had Danish architecture.
Yeah, that's what the EPCOT.
And they were on the original
Lots of blog posts
EPCOT
about
Center maps. They even had the bathrooms in the map there.
Oh, let's see if they have a name in there.
I don't think they had a name. It was just
noted them.
It was just the
okay.
the building is physically on the map. But yeah, so it was just brand new, and that was the amazing thing about even the film that they had there, The Spirit of Norway, that you would experience at the end of the boat ride. I still have the distinction of every single time I rode that boat ride, every single time I stayed and I watched that film. Beautiful.
Yeah.
It was one of my favorites. And I know we're kind of getting out of order here.
No, Norway was, pretty much original. And just a few years later, we can definitely talk about it.
But I just meant I was starting with the film before the ride itself.
Oh, well, that's okay.
We should probably go on the ride first.
Yeah, I always loved Maelstrom. It was always a fun time. I mean, I guess I understand how it wasn't as fun and exciting for people to keep attendance up. But that goes back to my statement that all of these pavilions could have been improved upon in their original state versus ripping them out and starting over. But I understand that that's just not the way things go.
No. But it was a very fun ride.
Yeah, and it really told you all about Norway. If you, as a little kid, had no clue, it really covered the very basics, especially with the film at the end. It gave you more insight.
That's right. But so on these wonderful little Viking boats, went up the hill. We are not the first to pass this way.
Yeah, it had
nor shall you
iconic
be the last.
theming.
Yeah, it showed a lot of the. I guess those weren't really audio animatronic characters, but they were Norwegian figures. I meant even just the guys before.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, then they went to the trolls. Apparently, they wanted us to disappear.
Yes.
We were invading their turf.
Back over the falls.
Over the falls. That's right. That was a fun place to see 14-foot giant polar bears and their children. Which,
if you do the backstage magic, which that name has been used many times throughout the years by Disney, the backstage magic tour, not the Adventures by Disney experience, which I think has changed its name again. Anyway, this is the one in Walt Disney World where you get to see Central Shops, which is where they maintain and fix and create ride vehicles and bits and pieces.
That's right.
They have the polar bear there. So he's part of the tour, and you can press a button and get him to roar, I think. I forget if that was... There was a button that you could make an audio animatronic parrot work. Yeah, it's on Zannaland.com if you want to.
You should check it out.
Search for Backstage Magic Tour. You can read about it.
And of course, after it went over the waterfalls, went to into the North Sea with a giant oil rig, but then I went into a very lovely, quaint Norwegian village, where you would hop out of the boat and wait for your next adventure to begin. And a lot of people did not like this adventure, or they just walked right through it because they didn't have the patience to see a beautiful film called The Spirit of Norway.
Back in the day, the doors would close and you had to stay in there.
Yeah.
And then people, I guess, over time were just like, hey, or somebody just decided to leave and the doors were always open.
I never understood that.
And then people would just walk through.
Why wouldn't you want to appreciate the beauty
Because of Fast
and
Pass
majesty
and people needing to get on Test Track and Soarin' and
silliness.
Ride everything. I mean, it's different when you're a local. You can kind of take your time and appreciate things.
I
But
guess
when people come for a once-in-a-lifetime vacation, they want to do it all.
It was just such a beautiful film, though. It showed the modern Norway and old-fashioned Norway with the child in the Norwegian museum kind of feeling that boat and like, hey, what happened in the past? And it showed all of that.
Yeah.
Good times. That was a great film.
It was. And, of course, they also had the Akershus restaurant, which I'm assuming you never went to.
That is correct.
It was a buffet back then. I haven't been there since it's been Princesses, but I did go there once as a child to the buffet. And
I remember, actually, in my later years, I went to the buffet once, and I was kind of, there was a lot more fish.
Yeah, so that hadn't changed then, I guess.
Than I wanted. They had meatballs, and so I had a lot of meatballs.
I remember eating meatballs and mac and cheese back when I went, and then there was a lot of pickled herring type of things, mackerel and whatever. So I did not really enjoy it, and we did not go back to that restaurant. And then it became the princess thing, and I still never went.
I think they still do have those fish meats.
Yeah.
But I'm sure to cater to
more.
the younger group, they probably also have a lot more traditional breakfast fare.
Mm-hmm. And of course, there is the I'm gonna say the name wrong, but the bakery.
Kringla. Or no, you're right, Kringlog. With the famed school bread that I never really liked because I'm not a coconut guy. But
I tried the school bread once and I wasn't a huge fan, and I am a coconut person. I don't know what, I think it was just that it was too bread-like and I wanted like a pastry kind of thing, so whatever. But I did, growing up, I used to get the rice cream there all the time. And they used to, back in the 80s, sell plain rice cream with nothing on it. And I even loved that. But then I also liked it with the strawberry on top. I think they still have it. I honestly have not been back since they refurbed that.
And of course, they also had the I still don't know how to pronounce this. Is it Stave or Stave? The Stave Church, which is a lovely little museum piece where they would put in Norwegian artifacts. That was just always a fun, even though it was right there at the front of the pavilion, it was always not very, it was a kind of a place to get away from it all.
It took me a long time to realize you could even go into that. And I think that's what most people, that and then the museum in Morocco, which we'll get to, which is now closed for refurbishment. Hopefully they're not getting rid of it. But it's one of those things where it doesn't say, come on in, or here's what's inside
and
here.
I think that's great. You don't need that.
It's exploration and discovery.
For those that, seek out those kinds of things and look for hidden treasures, that's a reward.
Yeah. We recently ducked into there when we were doing our food and wine video.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Christian and I and Amanda, because it was pouring out. So it is a good spot if you're running. And also you can go around the outside, the whole outside of it. There's like that walkway that's open.
You can only go through, around the front side.
Okay.
No, that always intrigued me. I always wanted to go all the way around, but you couldn't go around the backside. Oh, well. But it was fun. And they also had the fun grass roof.
I was just going to say that, yes.
Which
it was always fun.
Anyway, but on to the next. China.
Yeah, and there's a shop in there too that sold
Puffin's Roost.
Norwegian things. Now it's a lot of
including
frozen stuff,
giant
but
sweaters.
Still has Norwegian things. Yeah, very thick wool sweaters and stuff.
They
And
cost
they have the
hundreds
Helly
of dollars.
Hansen stuff. They've had that for a while now.
And, of course, the scent of Norway.
Ah, yes.
What is it called?
Spirit of Norway, isn't it? Yeah. Wait, what's it called?
I have no idea.
No.
Layla, the
Layla.
Spirit of Norway,
Yeah.
with Geir Nelson.
Sure. I don't know.
I love when you're walking around World Showcase and you could be as far away as, let's say, Italy, and you can still smell the Spirit of Norway. That's always
It's
a
very
fun-
distinctive.
Yeah, because
yes.
they have samples in there and lots of people spray it on themselves. So, yes, on to China.
China was one of my favorites, I'll be honest with you, because back then, when it first opened, China was it was the forbidden land. You know,
That's
it was,
true, yes.
You know, they had the Forbidden City, and it was just a place people just did not go to very much. It really had not had that resurgence that it has since had, where it's grown exponentially. And you could certainly see that in the 360 film that they had, The Wonders of China, the original one, which I went to many times. I know I've heard that you haven't been there too many times, but I would go there a lot.
Yeah, I preferred France because
That's okay.
you could sit down and you didn't have to
I
turn all
liked
the way
all
around.
of them.
It was a fun concept. I appreciated the 360 thing, but I would get dizzy a lot, like trying to see the whole thing and constantly turning back and forth. And, you know, back in the day when we were actually visiting and not just going for half a day or something, my feet would be killing me even as a small child, and I would not enjoy having to stand up and watch a movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I only saw the original one maybe one time.
I've seen
Sorry.
it hundreds of times. I loved it.
I did appreciate
But
the architecture.
It
and
was very unique just because of all of the distinct different lands that they had all within China, which were so foreign to me. But I do remember one very particular scene where they were showing the most inland city that is the farthest away from any ocean on the world, in the world. And when they kind of took the camera through there, all of the people were staring at this camera like, what is this newfangled weird thing that's traveling through our streets? It was such a very unique thing. But I do remember that Disney had to get special permission to be able to film all of these things. There were all kinds of crazy things about that, where they actually had to tell the Chinese what they wanted to film, and then they would actually go and film it themselves with this thing, because they had to approve everything. It was a very restrictive time, and so even just having a pavilion and having a movie showing this was just something rare. And like even just the scenes that they had in the Forbidden City was just something that's never been filmed before. So it was just very unique.
Yes. And I guess apparently the restaurants there didn't open when the pavilion
Right,
opened.
the restaurant, I think it was delayed for a few months.
We didn't go to the restaurants too often, but I do remember back in the day, this is another conversation, I guess. There used to be the food and fun card. Do you remember that?
No.
It's a precursor to the dining plan.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I do not, because I never really went to those restaurants.
There was actually, before that, there was the Gold Key plan.
Ooh, I had heard about that one.
And we'll do a different topic on this someday. But that's how and why we went to the Empress Lily room, the Empress room, which is the upstairs one with the gold leaf walls.
I'll have to take your word for it.
And the Gulf Coast room, which used to be in the Contemporary. That's why we went there, because on the Gold Key plan, you got 3 meals a day, and it was like entree, appetizer, entree, dessert, non-alcoholic beverage.
This is
for
all
every
ringing a
person.
bell, because I definitely remember reading about this in a
I
lot of the
talked
old materials.
I talked about
that
it in
that
mine
I
too,
had.
but yeah, a lot of people have discussed that. So by the end of our vacation, when we had that, we would be like, I'll just have a salad, because it
Oh my
was
gosh, I
really
would
like
love that.
too much food back then. But when I remember having the food and fun card, which I think was like a late 90s iteration of that. And that's when we would go to the Nine Dragons.
Okay. Nine Dragons is one of my favorites, because
Yeah, I
I
always
very
liked
much
it there.
like Chinese food, and it's a good place to do
But
that.
coming from Boston, like we had good Chinese food all the time, so it wasn't as. But we never went to places like Benihana growing up, I guess. I don't really remember that. So that's why we preferred Japan and that kind of like,
Okay.
I think Christian does too. I passed that down.
I very much like Japanese food too, but I never went to Benihana.
Yeah. I do remember having the lotus bean or like red bean. They used to have very unique desserts when it first
the ice
opened. I had
cream.
red bean ice cream and I
Yeah.
did not care for it.
Oh, no.
And they had some weird lychee thing too, which, you know, for me was weird when I was a child. I'm sure it's great. But yeah, and then they had the acrobats and like all sorts of fun stuff in there as well.
Yeah, and that was another thing. They had the circus performers in the actual movie itself, and then it was fun to see to go outside and see them as well. Then they had the beautiful museum space that was attached to the attached to the room, to the pre-show room for that for that movie. And even the pre-show room, it's such a beautiful place with a lot of dark woods and gorgeous Chinese tapestries, if you will. And I know that they would also even bring in musicians there to play before the movie, which is just gorgeous. And then, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and looking at, I mean, what made World Showcase, I think, so great was the amount of research and thought and doing it right that went into creating the architecture and the spaces. It was so authentic as they could get in some cases.
Right. And I think later we're going to actually film a thing where I'm going to kind of do an EPCOT show and tell where I have a bunch of things. It'll be a separate thing. But in one of them, I have several little booklets that they actually handed to the original cast members.
Oh, wow.
That worked in all these pavilions that essentially told the story of their pavilion, whether
they
it be
should still hand those out today.
to essentially get them in the right mindset to be able to tell the story of their country.
And of course, that was the other cool thing, was that the cast members were from
100% authentic. Yes,
yeah.
All of them came from those.
I remember having, I don't know what it was that I was having them sign, but I would have the different cast members write my name in their language for the ones that weren't, regular English letters. And that was a fun thing, which then people did that when the little Duffy and the masks used to be around, but I don't know what they have now. I guess the little Ziploc suitcase things.
Yes, the KidCot, the KidCots have definitely changed over the years, but that's
and they didn't exist when this park opened because you didn't have to try to entertain kids. They were just as a child there, I found the whole place incredibly fascinating. I agree. Could not get enough. Yes. So going from China, I guess
there's a giant bridge.
There's the bridge, which is a drawbridge.
It's always fun.
No longer used without.
Oh, that's right.
Reflections of Earth globe going through it anymore.
With the globe that came through, they would have to raise that bridge. And a lot of times, anytime they need to bring anything big there, they do that. And
I don't remember what used to be there before the little Africa.
Well, nothing. That was the planned location for the Equatorial Africa Pavilion. And in the opening special with Danny Kaye and Drew Barrymore, they actually had Alex Haley, the author of Roots. He did a whole presentation about this thing that was going to be built. I've even seen artwork from like original artwork that talks about all of the different drawings and things. Sorry, they had a couple of different shows planned in there that was just going to be fascinating. But anyway, that pavilion, and it's actually even in this book. There's there's 4 pages in the Epcot Center Beard book talking about it, but that never came to be. And so that's always been kind of the Equatorial Africa corner, but it never really amounted to an actual pavilion. Did it have
the same buildings that are there now back then? Because I really don't.
They've built onto it more, but where the restaurant is now, that was there, but then they've kind of expanded on it to have more things to sell.
Gotcha.
But I think that should probably... we
were hoping to get to America.
We haven't
for
even
this
gotten
episode.
to Germany yet.
I know.
But I think we sure do talk a lot.
Speak for yours. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh.
Yes, we do. But I mean, that's the thing, is like you have a lot more of the history things. If it was just me talking, I'd be like, that was fun and I remember it.
It was fun. I do remember it.
But hopefully, people are enjoying that.
But
this
stay tuned.
topic.
Stay tuned for our next episode where we
Yes.
will absolutely finish
We will finish World
World
Showcase,
Showcase
and then
have
we
a little
may
bit
have
more. That's
a final
there's a tease.
wrap up
Just,
EPCOT.
like, how would you
episode.
wrap up Epcot in the day? So we'll see. Meaning,
I don't know what you mean.
it's a tease.
Okay.
Like how a guest might wrap up their day at Epcot, we might wrap up our
I
podcast
get it.
of Epcot. So a fun tease,
Yes.
possibly.
So with that said, we thank you for listening. At least, Jeff Leapak is listening. We want to give him a shout out. He's commented on Twitter referencing what we're talking about every now and then. So
And it is fun
we
to get.
greatly appreciate that,
It's fun to
Jeff.
get comments. So please, if you're listening, please
Yes.
send us a line in any of our places that we have, and whether it be in Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or on our YouTube
Yes.
site.
I think
and
that's what
certainly Zannaland.com.
that's what makes these discussions so fun, is that I may not remember something, but you will, and someone else might have a different memory that they want to share,
Yeah,
and
we all have our different memories.
refresh our memories. So thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching us there, give us a thumbs up. If you are listening to us on iTunes, you can subscribe there and give us a rating so other people can discover us.
Yeah, we would absolutely appreciate
Wherever
that.
you
And-
listen to podcasts, you can do that.
And as we mentioned, comments are very much appreciated as well.
You can follow us all on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and all that fun stuff. All of those links will be in the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's about it, I guess, for
this one, but
episode. Stay tuned
there will
for
be more.
part 4
Oh my goodness.
of our EPCOT series. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time up the waterfall.
Up the waterfall.
That is absolutely fantastic.
Well, that's only part of it. We got a big climatic scene.
But how could you top it?
Well, we set the place on fire, and we have our audience trapped down in this flaming city.
Now, how can they get out then?
Well, now you got into this mess by going down a waterfall. Now, how would you suppose we get them out of there?
By going up the waterfall?
That's right. Anything's possible in Disneyland.